in Suffolk County. She's worked tirelessly for over 30 years to advocate for everyone from children to adults, immigrants, citizens, people in recovery, anyone who has ever needed a second chance. Allison currently serves in the Committee for Public Counsel Services, Public Defenders Division, where she oversees 75 public defenders, social workers, and investigators for Suffolk and Norfolk counties. That's a lot. Over the course of her career, she has been appointed and served on a number of boards, including Boston's Police Reform Task Force, the Massachusetts Advisory Board on Probation, and the Governor's Restorative Justice Advisory Committee. She believes a judicial system that is fair, open, and equitable is critical to preserving fundamental constitutional and human rights. Thank you for that. So, how are you? And what made you throw your hat in the ring?
Thank you so much for having me. I came to this position and wanting to be your next clerk when I learned that Maura Doyle, the current clerk, was stepping down. And it's an opportunity for me to take all of my lived experience and including my professional experience as an attorney for over 30 years, to bring that to serve our state's highest court and to serve the people that rely on that court. So that's what made me want to do that, to do this, to take on this important role. One of the things go ahead.
I'm now going to say, could you tell us what the role entails?
Yes. Okay. This is a clerk that is responsible for swearing in new attorneys, welcoming them into the profession, profession that I have been licensed to practice in for, it'll be 32 years in December.
Wow.
Yes.
You've always been with the Public Defenders Department?
No, but I've always been doing public defense work.
Okay.
98% of the time.
Okay.
This is also the clerk who has to help conduct attorney disciplinary hearings, help the court to do that in the event that attorneys mess up, and that does happen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you have many of those cases?
Well, the clerk would handle those. We hope that they're, far and few between, but it does occur. Folks will mess up, and if they need to be disciplined, that will happen, because when you are sworn in, you take an oath and you have to uphold certain professional standards and ethics. And I'm fully aware of that. Having been, again, a member of the bar for over 30 years, I have a full understanding, not only when I'm swearing attorneys in, but when I'm helping the court and assisting in conducting those hearings. I understand what it means to be an attorney. And the disciplinary hearings, yes, those may be hard, but necessary, because we do have to protect everyone involved in the legal system. This is also the clerk who has to run what we call the single justice session. That's a really critical session. It's for emergency appeals that can typically take place when you're in the middle of a trial or a hearing, and you believe that the trial judge has made an erroneous ruling that affects your constitutional rights or may have a serious impact on the case itself. So you're allowed to do this, but once you file this motion, the proceedings themselves must come to a halt. And so it's important that this clerk knows what they're doing, because you have to work very quickly. Efficiency is really key here, but also being professional and understanding what it means to gather that information, assemble that record. So that record will include the petition, any pleadings that the petitioner must file, the respondent, their pleadings, and if there are any interested parties that have standing that may be able to weigh in. You have to, as clerk, you have to get all of that together, again, very quickly, because the trial or the hearing is put on pause.
Okay.
And you have to get that record together, and you have to present it to the single justice. And the justices rotate handling those cases. But the justice, you want to make it the justice's job really easy, that all the justice has to do is focus in on the issue that's being addressed.
And the information that you have gathered.
Yes.
Okay.
And once the justice makes their decision, you have to then announce that decision. You have to notify the parties and announce that decision. And as of a couple of weeks ago, the clerk's office is now publishing those decisions.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is a
Something
wonderful
new?
step forward. It's
Yeah.
new.
Okay.
It makes it, again, more accessible to the public and the consumers of the court, the people who are using that court.
So would you say, do you have to be an attorney to be in that position? Or, but I'm quite sure you must have some type of law background, right, to be able to.
Well, unfortunately, no.
Really?
You don't. It's not required to run for this position, but it is absolutely desirable, and I'll tell you why. First, what I will tell you is it's an elected position,
Okay.
but there is a counterpart. There's a clerk for the Commonwealth
Okay.
that also serves the SJC, which is an acronym for the Supreme Judicial Court. Recently, that position became vacant, and the SJC appoints that clerk to a 5-year term.
Okay.
So what happened is, when the SJC posted that position, they had a few minimum requirements. The
Okay.
first being that you must be an attorney.
Okay.
You must have at least 10 years of experience practicing law.
Okay.
And you must also have progressive managerial experience.
Okay.
So this is the SJC telling us what they want in a clerk.
Okay.
And if you look at my experience, my qualifications, I check off all of those boxes probably 2 or 3 times over, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
it is very much desired. And our current clerk, Maura Doyle, she was an attorney for more than, I'd say, a dozen years before she became clerk. And she has been clerk for almost 30 years now.
So do you have to keep running for this position, or once you get it, are you in it, or do you have to keep running?
Right.
Because I never even really heard no one run for that position before, so that's why I'm asking.
Yes, it's a 6-year term.
Okay.
So it is very important that we get this right. And I am the only attorney in this race.
Okay.
And I think that, and I'm sure, most people would agree and also believe that an attorney should hold this position. First and foremost, this is our state's highest court. This court makes decisions that affect all of us in the Commonwealth. And in fact, the reach of our SJC goes even beyond the Commonwealth. Other states look to us and will cite our SJC cases in their own pleadings as persuasive argument. So we are a leader when it comes to jurisprudence and law. And I think that's another reason why people really should care about this particular race. And also, again, when we're looking at things that are happening in our country, our democracy is really at the precipice of perhaps falling over that cliff. And we don't want that to happen.
Exactly. So so I see you have had a couple of different positions. You said the Committee for Public Counsel Services, Public Defenders Division. So it says Public Counsel. So I'm assuming that's the department that deals with the public defenders.
Yes, that's our. It's a long name,
Uh-huh.
but it's the state's public defender agency, and we are
Okay.
statewide. So we're
Okay.
in,
Oh, that's another question I was going to ask you. So you're traveling all over the state, huh?
well, on occasion, but I am responsible for Suffolk and Norfolk counties.
No, I'm talking about running for office.
Oh no, this
Oh,
position is, interestingly enough, it is the voters of Suffolk County only
Oh,
who
okay.
elect this clerk. However, once this clerk takes office, this clerk does represent the entire state. So you're
Wow.
correct in that. So
Okay.
that's another huge responsibility that the voters of Suffolk County have. They're not just voting for, we're not voting for ourselves. We're actually voting for all of our brothers and sisters throughout this state, throughout the Commonwealth.
Right.
So it is quite serious that we do vote for someone who is qualified and able to take on this huge task of assisting our state's highest court, and again, the folks who rely on it. So it is quite a serious position, and it should come with someone who is qualified should sit in this seat.
And who has experience?
Yes.
Maybe experience in the law and knows about the law. And yeah, like I said, this is the first time I've heard of the judicial clerk. Well, I guess that's because the person hasn't left in 30 years, right? So if they've been there for 30-something years, there wouldn't be a reason for us to know because there's no election.
Well, yeah, her name has been on the ballot. She was opposed only one time, but I think sometimes what you'll find is if there's an office or a department or some entity that is doing its job and doing it, very competently, you're not going to hear much about it because they're doing the work, and there's no reason for folks to have controversy or issues with it. So that is what I would like to continue to keep the smooth sailing that's going on, but to build on the foundation that our current clerk has set. And some of those things might include, again, it's great to have these decisions coming out of the single justice session being available to people online. I might consider, this is very new, so I have to see how well it is working, and I'm sure what I've heard even in the very short time that it's been up is that, and from attorneys, is that they really do appreciate it, and they like having those decisions available to read, and it helps to inform them in their practice and their decision making on whether or not to file petitions. Perhaps just being a little more forward thinking, maybe I could turn this and some of the things this clerk's office does into an app to make it even more readily accessible to people, not just attorneys, but the general public.
Right. Because I'm sure that there are some cases that the public would want to know about, right? So how are they informed? So is
Well,
it
they
like
can-
you said you want to create an app? Yeah.
Well, not me, but have someone
Yeah.
have someone else do it. Some of these
Young
these
folks.
technical minds.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, if I can, a recent example of how the single justice session was used. I know a lot of people were following the Karen Reed trial, and it attracted national attention. So I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners were possibly following along. Well, at one point, the prosecutor brought a motion for what's called a buffer zone because there were protesters outside the courthouse on a daily basis during the trial. And Karen Reed and her attorneys didn't really take a position on it. However, the folks who were outside protesting did. They hired an attorney and they brought a petition before the single justice session regarding the buffer zone because the Judge Canoni had allowed the Commonwealth's motion.
Mm-hmm.
So they contested it, and so everything had to be quickly assembled. All of the, like I said, the petition, the pleadings from petitioner, respondent, and it got in front of a single justice, and they were heard. The single justice did agree with the trial judge that there should be a buffer zone, and the reasons were, of course, public safety, but the reason the protesters had a right and what we call standing to bring that petition was because they were arguing that their constitutional rights were being violated. Their right to free speech, their right to assemble for their protest. And they were correct in that. So they did get the opportunity to be heard. And that's what that session does for people.
Okay.
Even though ultimately the buffer zone was in place, they still got to hold their protests, and then the trial continued.
Wow. And is that trial's over, right? Is it over? They hung jury?
It was a mistrial, yes.
Mistrial. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What's the difference between a mistrial and a hung jury?
It's pretty much the same thing. They could not reach a unanimous verdict, which is the standard here in criminal proceedings.
Okay. Okay. So now they have to. This has to be retried again.
Well, yes. When there's I shouldn't say yes quite so quickly. Whenever there is a mistrial and it's declared, it is up to the Commonwealth as to whether or not they wish to try the case again. And it's my understanding that that is what is happening, and they're having hearings now to determine what's going on in that case.
Wow. Yeah.
And how to go forward, and whether to go forward on all of the original charges. So there's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, we see a lot of lawyers now, especially black lawyers, women lawyers. I didn't realize there were so many women lawyers, but there are a lot of women that, and I don't think being a lawyer, taking that bar is that easy. I have a nephew, Michael Curry. He had to take it twice, before. A lot of people don't get it the first time, and they have to. Yeah.
Right, that can happen. It's law school is a rigorous endeavor. It's a lot of work to go to law school, to complete it, and then to sit for this bar. 2-day exam.
That's how long the bar takes?
It takes two days.
I mean, 2 days.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
In some states, California, I think it's 3 days. Or at least it was back when I was back in 1992 when I took the exam.
Wow. So that's a while. You've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a long time. And it didn't really hit me until I was preparing to run for this, and I'm starting to put together
your
bio, my bio and all that. And I was like, 30 years. And much
that's a blessing, to be able to be a lawyer in Massachusetts. I mean, just, to be able, especially when, if you're dealing with the criminal side, I mean, that must take a toll on you.
It's hard work. It's rewarding work. And I was a trial attorney up until I became a managing director. So I'm not really doing that
the day-to-day
part
anymore.
In my day-to-day, but I miss it. And it's very, like I say, it's hard work. Public defenders work tirelessly. When you're on trial or you're preparing for a trial, you're working well beyond. It's not a 9-to-5 job by no means.
I can imagine all the reading and research. That's why you have law students and law clerks and.
Well, yeah. At CPCS, we do have law interns to help with a lot of the trial prep. But the attorneys do a lot of work. We also have investigators. We have social service advocates on staff, and we have administrative support staff that does a wonderful job of they're often the first contact people will have with the office after, for example, an arraignment,
Okay.
when we're
Okay.
assigned to represent someone.
Okay, so that's what happens. Somebody goes to goes for an arraignment, and they cannot afford an attorney. Like they say, attorney will be, if you can't afford one, they'll be appointed to you. And
Correct.
then, so that's when they reach out to your office. Now, is the attorney given to them, or do they reach out?
Well, the court will
I mean, is the attorney
assign.
signed to them?
Yeah, the court will assign an attorney, and we also have bar advocates. Those are private attorneys who accept court-appointed cases, and they have to go through an interview process. They have to go through trainings. CPCS is very big on making sure that all attorneys who are accepting court-appointed cases, whether they be staff attorneys or private bar advocates, are fully trained to take on these clients and represent them. We have high standards,
Right,
so
right.
we work to ensure that is always in place, because we're client-centered, and everything revolves on the client and providing the best services that we can. And now, since we've started having social service advocates, we are able to offer a more holistic approach to client representation, helping not only with your legal issues, but also if you have, oftentimes clients may have substance use disorder. They may have, be facing homelessness, educational gaps, and things like that we work to match them with the proper resources, because it's interesting, we're trying to help people so that they don't come back and have to be a repeat client.
Right.
But we also recognize that sometimes when you're dealing with people who are in recovery, there will be some hiccups and some bumps, and people will fall, but we have to pick them back up again.
I mean, I don't know if you can answer this question, but when people are incarcerated unjustly, and they spend 20 and 30, some even 40 years in prison, and they are finally let go, either because their time is up, or either because someone has advocated for them to get out. What do you think? Do you think that they should be compensated financially? And are most of them compensated? Because there's been a lot of that where people have been coming in from, coming back home,
Right.
falsely accused, So they've lost 20, 30 years of their life where they could have been earning a living. Does the state give any type of compensation for that?
Well, I honestly don't know that it's automatic, but what I do see happening is these innocently convicted people who are released are filing lawsuits to get compensation, and that's something that would have to be taken up with the legislature. And we do have at CPCS, there is an innocence
The Innocent Project, yeah.
that we have, and there's also the Innocence Project of New England. So we do, as CPCS, we do believe that folks who are innocent and are found to be innocent and are exonerated should be compensated.
So there's a race.
But as a clerk, I would take no position on that.
Right. You just basically,
I have to be
right.
neutral, fair, and impartial, because anyone coming into the clerk's office and coming into the Supreme Judicial Court needs to believe in the integrity of the court.
Right.
And that can only come through the professionalism of, for example, the clerk's office. That's going to be the bridge between getting you over and into the arena to be able to make your argument in front of the Supreme Judicial Court.
Yeah, that's interesting. How the system works, how the court system and everything works, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's hard, especially for people that look like me and you. It seems like we're we get the short end of the stick. You know, we're proven guilty into we're guilty into proven innocent in some cases. I know it's supposed to be the other way around, but in some cases it's not. And so I just wonder, taking if you win this position, right? Because let's talk about your campaign a little bit.
Sure.
How's it going? I mean, are you finding that people are receptive and open to you and open to your you running? Because I would think, sometimes when there's a new face, that people don't know, haven't seen, the first question they ask is, who are you? Where you been? Where you come from? And what you
Yes.
So
The campaign is going very well. We are steadily building momentum, and I'm happy to let all of your viewers and listeners know that I have the endorsement of many key elected officials. I have the endorsement of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
That's a big one.
I admire her.
Yeah.
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, Attorney General Andrea Campbell, and state senators Liz Miranda, but my campaign co-chair is Senator Lydia Edwards.
Okay.
So and a number of other senators, including Will Brownsberger and Jamie Eldridge, who chairs the Senate. Get it right, Allison. The Senate Judiciary Committee. A number of state representatives, town council, city councilors in Boston. I have a majority of the Boston city councilors endorsing me.
Okay.
And I also have several unions who have endorsed me.
That's
UAW,
big.
Local 9, the Boston Teachers Union.
That's a big
Asked Me has endorsed me. So it's about building a lot of momentum. And once
Right.
people do get to meet me, because I have largely, when I'm working as a public defender and I'm in the court, I'm affecting lives one client at a time, but not just that client. It's that client's family, that client's friends and village.
Right.
So there are people who do know me. 2 days ago, I was at an event and I'm introducing myself to a table of people, and one of the gentlemen says, "You were my attorney. I remember you."
Oh, okay.
And he was happy. Yay.
Yeah.
So there are people who know me. Now, if I see a client out in public or whatever, I do not, I might just say, "Hi, how are you?" But I'm not going to say I was your attorney, because that's up for the client. May not want people to know.
Right, exactly.
About some of their past. But for the most part,
Yeah.
they're happy to see me when I'm out and about. And so there are people who do know me for that work. But now I get to reach a wider audience.
Right.
And I'm this race, it's not just Boston. It's Chelsea, it's Revere, it's Winthrop. And I'm in all of
you have to
those
get all
communities
yeah.
as well.
Yeah. I know Stacy Borden, who I grew up with, is running for governor's council, and she has Boston plus 19 towns and cities through all the way down to Hull, Mass. So
Yes, she has a big area.
yeah, she does. But I tell you, I've never seen nobody more qualified than her to be sitting on the governor's council, because a lot of people don't know what the governor's council do,
Right.
And I know that they appoint judges. They appoint probation officers and parole officers, and you have to. I mean, if you listen to Stacy talk, and what she has done, she opened up this reentry center for women coming out of prison, called New Beginnings, and that's the perfect name for it,
Yes.
And it just happens to be right around the corner from my office, where my office is. I run a program called the Marcus Anthony Hall Educational Institute. And it's a civic engagement program that we teach young folks about advocacy, organizing, about civic engagement. We take them to City Hall I guess that's one place we need to take them to the courthouse, right? So they can say.
Right, and that's one of the things I would do as clerk. Well, what I can tell you what I do now, and people say, what are you doing in community? I go out, I speak to kindergarten students,
Oh.
and I tell people this all the time because it's one of my, warmest memories is I go and I talk to kindergarten students, and they have called me a princess attorney. They're like, "Oh, you're a princess attorney." Well, at least they got the attorney part right, because I firmly believe that we cannot plant our seeds too soon and too deep.
That's
so
right.
I do go out. I talk to kindergartners, and when they see me and they see this black face, they know
That they
that
can do it too.
anything is
Yep.
possible. You can be a
Yeah.
lawyer.
That's right.
You can be, you can be whatever you want to be.
That's
As
right.
long as you put in the work.
That's right.
And that is what I have done all of my life. I
Right.
put in the work. I'm not just walking to the front of the line and saying, "Oh, I want to be clerk of our state's highest court."
Mm-hmm.
No, I have worked hard in this profession.
Right.
I
right.
know the role. I have
Right.
worked with clerks for 30 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, I talk with kindergartners. I work with middle school students in a program called Discovering Justice, Inc.
Mm-hmm.
That's where middle schoolers are they get to do a moot argument. So they are given a fact pattern. Attorneys and judges volunteer their time to help work with them and to prepare them for an argument. And then they make oral arguments in a real courthouse.
Wow.
It used to be in the Suffolk courthouse. Now it's in the federal courthouse at the Moakley courthouse. But they get to stand up in a real courtroom and make arguments in front of a real sitting judge.
Wow.
And it's those types of experiences that can stay with our
Yeah,
children and
yeah.
help them to grow
encourage
and
them.
explore
Yeah.
the possibilities.
Yeah.
And I work with undergraduate students. I speak at Northeastern University, for example. I also, I've been on the faculty of the trial advocacy workshop at Harvard Law School. So I help to train law students.
Okay.
And I would further expand this as clerk. I would also include senior citizens.
Okay.
And I would go out, I would talk with these different groups, but I would also invite them into the courthouse because this is the people's courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, truly, it's not boring. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a lawyer and it sort of excites me to watch these arguments, but I think there's a lot of value in people seeing
What
the legal
actually goes on?
process happening in real life.
Yeah. Instead
seeing-
of always watching TV, right?
Right.
Law and Order and CSI. Yeah.
I mean, those are fun for entertainment, but when
Yeah.
you actually come and watch a real trial, come watch these arguments
Yeah.
at the Supreme Judicial Court. You'd be fascinated, I think.
That might be a field trip for my youth, maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe make a field trip of it. Yeah, it's just amazing, all these different types of offices that are elected that we really don't even know that they're elected positions, and so I commend you for stepping out. I stepped out in 2019 for at-large city council race. I lost, of course, but that's okay. That's 'cause,
Put yourself out there.
but I'm still in the fight. I'm still in the struggle. I still do advocacy work. I still support my community, and like I was a founder member of the Black Boston COVID Coalition when they weren't even they weren't even giving us testing. And so yeah, it's been a journey. I was born and raised in Boston, so it's been a journey. But I don't see any like lit or anything. Do you have like your literature? Are you passing it out to folks? Because I didn't even have anything. I just got the one picture that I think Lisa sent me.
Yes, we do. I'm actually trying to dig in my bag now to get some for you.
Yeah, but
Yes,
this
and
is
we
nice.
we have been passing this out, and we do what we call lit drops. all the time. We're canvassing.
Mm-hmm.
And for your listeners and viewers, we also
Wow, this is
we do
impressive.
and it's being updated. So we're going to have a new one out hopefully tomorrow, as early as tomorrow. I'm expecting it because we have more endorsers that are standing with me in this campaign. So we for your, as I was saying, for your listeners and viewers, we have a website. I would encourage and invite people to visit the website and sign up to volunteer to help us with canvassing and lit drop. It's important. We're very grassroots,
Right, right.
which is honestly, it's a nice way of saying we're relying on the people to
That's
help
right.
get this message out.
'Cause
We're not.
we the people, we got the power.
That's right. That's right.
And I that's my tagline, and I truly believe that. I believe that we as the people, we have the power. We just have to come together collectively, you know, and be on one accord and have one agenda, you know. I mean, not one agenda, but have the same agenda. Collaborative, you know, we should be in collaboration instead of competition. You know, it's sad to see, you know, good organizations, you know, that can't even come together to collaborate, you know. And when when I'm saying this, I'm talking about the nonprofit world for one on one side, and on the other side, I'm talking about the politicians, because a lot of times people jump up and they want to run for office, and then they don't have any type of experience. They don't have any type of platform. They just, you know, they may not like the person that's in there, so they just, you know, want to run against them. It seems like to me you were patient and you waited until it was actually an open seat, you know, instead of, you know, going for against somebody, which it's competition anyway, you know. But I feel like because as Black Americans, American freed people, we don't get the same opportunities as other people, you know. So when there's 4 or 5 of us that look the same and we running, we just kind of cancel each other out. That's the way it's been, you know. And so I just wish that we were more, you know, worked more together. And there are some folks that are working on putting together a PAC, you know, so that we can raise money for the people that we want to run, raise money, support them, get out and help them. Because a lot of times, and I'm just going to be honest, we have all these endorsements, but that's just what they are, you know. When I look for an endorsement, I want to see bodies and volunteers and money, volunteers and money, volunteers and money, because that's what it takes. And before I really, you know, knew about run, you know, politics and stuff, and I'd say in the game since like 1991. My first campaign I worked on was Garrett Saunders when he ran for District 7 against Tony Creighton, and so that gave me the fire to because we won, you know. So when you win your first campaign you ever worked on, you feel good, you know. And then we went and worked with Charlotte Gola Ritchie for when she ran for state legislator. And so we won that one, you know. So we, you know, so you get the fever, you know. And I was working for the city of Boston in the elderly commission. And so it's good because you see people that are out there that are working in other areas, you know, that people may not know about. But I feel like if we could just come together as a people, you know, and really do some strategic things and really put something in place, we could have more people that look like us in office, and we could have real people, because sometimes they look like us, but they don't, you know, they just look like us, you know. Really,
Okay.
they're not, you know, kinfolk are all, you know, we're not all you know, some people have their own agenda, you know, and it's okay to have your own agenda, but when your agenda hurts somebody else, then that's an issue. That's a problem, you know. And we know Boston. We know their politics. You know, us that were born and raised here, we remember busing in 1975. You know, the fact that they tried to stab Ted Lansmock with a American flag. All right,
Yes.
you know, and so it just goes back our history. You know, of us being slave. You know, Jim Crow. I mean, and they want us to forget it. They say, oh, it was a job training program, slavery. I mean, are you real? Are you serious? You know, I mean, so some of the things that come out these folks' mouth that are in positions of power, you know, you got to stop and think, you know. And so we know that we have a major election coming up, you know, not only in our primaries. People don't realize that politics is local, you know, and we have to get into our city councils and our state reps and our state senators and even our federal. We have to know them and they have to know us. You know, we got to let them know, listen, we have your back, but you got to have ours too. You know, you stop selling us out, you know? And so.
When it takes people being engaged, you really have
Right.
to be engaged, get
Right.
involved.
Yeah.
You have to care. You have to care about your community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that we're turning the tide in that respect, and people are caring more. I was at a neighborhood council meeting last night, and there were at least maybe 8 students, teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
in the audience,
Good,
and
yeah,
that was
yeah.
very encouraging. And
Mhm.
they did have questions for me,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
which told me that they're listening, they're paying attention.
Right, right.
So I think that there is there's headway being made, and you know, thanks to people like you, who, you know, you're out here, you're doing this hard work, and your message, it's getting through. It is, and thank you. Be not weary. Keep
In well doing, right?
yes.
Yeah, but yeah, it does it gets discouraging sometimes, but I thank God that, you know, I know who He is, you know, and I know who I am, and I just stay in the fight. I just, you know, I stay in different struggles. You know, people ask me for help in different things, you know, and I say yes, you know. I'm gonna start saying no one day.
Well, make sure you're ready to pass that baton when you do.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. That's why I have this Marcus Anthony, because I am training young folks, you know, from the ages of 14, 24, how to advocate for yourself, how to organize. What if there's an issue going on? How would you put something together, a petition, or, you know, something to help you do what you need to do, you know? I had some of my students look up some of the people that we look up to, you know, some of the folks that was in the struggle with us, like Elmer Lewis, you know, Mel King, you know, Chuck Turner. Of course, they all went to their phones and they had like a 2-second presentation. I was like, really? That's all you, like, that's all you could find about Chuck Turner? You know, I mean, it's just like they some of them go in, but they don't go in deep enough, you know, and so. And I think it's this TikTok. Everybody, I don't know what is up with TikTok. I don't even do TikTok, but everybody's on TikTok now, you know. And so social media has taken over our lives, literally, you know. And these computers, we're glued to them. And these things here, we're glued to them. If you leave your house without your phone, you're going to go back and get it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a bit of panic will set in. Like, oh my
Exactly.
God, I forgot my phone.
Yeah, it's like your whole life is on here, and and then we have these hiccups where, you know, things don't go right, you know, like planes can't land for whatever, or there's issues with communication. I mean, I think it was last week, the week before last, internets and everything was messing up. People couldn't fly, you know. I mean, but see, people don't realize that God's in control of all of this, you know. One snap and it's all over, you know. And so I just want people to be mindful of that, and we should work together. We should love one another. They pit us against each other because we come from different countries, but we're here, you know. We were born here, the American freedmen, black folks. We were here, you know. And so the folks that come in, they're taught negative things about black Americans, you know. We're lazy. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. Well, how did this country get built? Tell me. How did this country get built if we're lazy? Okay. So there's a lot of different things, you know, that we just have to instill and really try to teach our young folks.
And I think
our old
folks
too.
are starting to see cities like Boston are changing. We do have a lot of different immigrants, and we're all living together, and living together, quite, peacefully. When I was at this meeting last night, there was a wide variety of people. Just by looking at the faces, you could see that,
Right.
folks were black, brown, white, just all coming together, and they had, they were talking about common goals and things like that. So it's possible, and it's happening.
Was this a neighborhood association meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And one of the biggest problems we're having in the courts now is access to language and not being able to get interpreters. And that's an issue, because that is justice delayed, which is justice denied.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
And we can't allow that to happen. So that's another thing when we're talking about, courts being accessible. We need to provide that as well. And we cannot, fail folks who are coming to the court in need of assistance and seeking justice.
Right.
So
But can't
that's one of
understand
the
the
things I talk
language.
about during this campaign, is something that I would help to work on with the court.
So is it that they don't have enough interpreters? Because I know I've been in thousands of Zooms, and a lot of times they do have an option where you could pick the language you want. So they do have interpreters actually there interpreting, but when you go to in the courthouse, they don't have like language interpreters
Well,
for different.
they have to have them. And for example, in trials, I recently had an attorney on my staff who had a trial in Superior Court, and that case had to be continued for 3 times
'Cause of language.
before, yes, because of the language interpreter, getting the interpreter. And when cases get continued, they can be continued like 3, 4, 6 months down the
That's a long
line,
time.
and that's a long time.
Especially if you're incarcerated,
Right.
especially if you can't make bail, and so
And it's important that attorneys have to have interpreters to go visit clients that don't, that if they don't speak the same language. So it's a serious issue, and you do need to have an interpreter in the court with you. And if it's a rare language, sometimes you have one interpreter who is assisting not only, and I'll speak for the criminal setting, that's assisting not only, for example, the defendant, but may also have to interpret for witnesses. So it's a lot, and it is important. And not just anyone can do court interpretation, because we're using all of these legal terms and terminologies that have to be translated. So it's not enough to say, a family member is going to come and interpret. No, we can't. We have to have people who are certified and understand,
the legal
legalese,
language,
and to be able to translate that accurately. So it's not simple to get interpreters, and to actually have, and it's important that they're certified. Again, it's important through all levels of the legal system to have people who are qualified to do the job at hand.
Right.
And that's why for this position, I'm the only qualified candidate. My opponent doesn't have a legal background. Has
Do
no
you have
legal
one
experience.
opponent or more?
I have one opponent. There are
Okay.
only 2 of us in this race. So the primary is key. People need to vote by September 3rd.
Yes. Early
Let's
vote.
not talk about
vote
November.
By mail. Right.
You can vote by mail. You can do early voting. You can vote on September 3rd. But keep in mind, that is the day after Labor Day. So if you even think you might be busy, please
vote
do early voting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think actually the last day to even register to vote is I believe it's August 26th. They said.
I think the 24th, and it might be on my literature. That part may not be on the literature.
Oh.
But yes,
Is
it
it
is.
the
It's August 24th.
Yeah. No, that's early voting.
Well, early
August
voting starts
24th
that
to
day
the
too, but
30th.
that's the last day
Okay.
to register.
Request a mail-in ballot August 26th. That's really late to be requesting the mail-in ballot, right?
But you still get it, and you got to get it, and you got to put it in that mail right away.
Ooh. I usually do vote early voting because I usually always am working with mass voter tables, doing get out the vote type of stuff. So
And we really do have to emphasize the get out the vote, especially in our communities. When you think about how hard,
yeah, I know.
Maybe one generation ago, at least for me, who fought really hard for us to be able to vote, and you now see that it's happening again in the South, and it'll just trickle its way up if we don't stop it now. So we really have to vote. We have to take advantage. And it's not even taking advantage. It's exercising our fundamental right.
Yeah.
Fundamental constitutional right to vote. And we have to have people engaged in that. And it's not always about, what's in it for me. You're voting for yourself. You're voting for your child. You're voting for your grandchildren who may not even be born yet.
Yeah.
So you do have to get out. You do need to vote. It makes a difference.
It does make a difference. I mean, we're done. Oh my God!
Goodness. Well, let me
right.
get my website out there, please.
And
I encourage people and invite them to visit my website, cartwrightforclerk.org. And if you visit the website, you'll learn more about me, this campaign, and why you should vote for me on September 3rd. So again, I'm so happy to be here, and I can't believe how the time has flown.
Yeah, time flies.